So yeah, I do have a Nana, and I'm sure many of you can probably tell it's already, it's not a collected bonsai. It's something that was grown to be a bonsai. So somebody's already kind of put bends in it and helped it along, cut a few branches here and there. This particular one came from House of Bonsai out there in Lakewood. So, I had different things in mind, but at the last minute I was like, okay, I need to go to House of Bonsai and see what they have. This is kind of, the easy route in some ways, because like I said, it's already been kind of set up for you, and there's a lot of stuff to work with. But there's less problems than you might have with a tree that's just been grown in somebody's yard or something like that. But for me, it also, there's the problem that everything that comes from House of Bonsai looks like it came from House of Bonsai. So there you go. Nothing wrong with that, it's just a look. So. But that's about it. It's probably 10 or 15 years old. You can see it's got some pretty decent roots packed in there. It's probably been in this pot for most of that time. And so right away, obviously, start getting rid of the stuff that's coming out of the corners of the heavier branches that you're probably going to want to use. And that'll kind of help your eye see what's going on in there. Like all this kind of stuff that's in close. And it's a sucker off a stronger branch. So we know we don't need that stuff. And it's kind of getting in our way of seeing what's going on here. So, I don't know if you notice, here's, as we try to look at this tree, we've got all this stuff in the way, but I can already see by, the Nimbari, the way the roots kind of branch out this way, and the tree's going out, the trunk is going this way, but kind of curving back towards the viewer. That's most likely going to be our front. So, otherwise, we'd have this thing poking us in the face, this curve on the trunk here, and that's not desirable. So it's pretty easy to pick out the front. And so as we go up, I'm looking at, again, this House of Bonsai move where they bend the tree over. And that's, it's just kind of, my eye goes right to it. And it's, what are we going to do about that? And you can see how, as we go up, this branch, this whole section is pretty big, and it throws off the scale. This section kind of continues the taper of the trunk and reverses back on itself and kind of balances things out. So that's going to be the direction I'm going to go in later. I'm going to get this large stuff out of the way because it's out of scale and it's in your face, and try and work the tree back this way. So let me start by, I'm going to start to look for my first branch. And there's, a couple possibilities. I'm looking for something that's pretty big, given that it's down low, that's the right scale. But also because this tree is kind of leaning this way, I need something that's going to kind of balance it out a little bit as well. And like I said, somebody had made some cuts on here years ago. So some of these branches were cut in weird places and then grew back. But that actually, I think, might help us out here. So again, as I'm trying to refine my vision of this tree, I'm going to clear little stuff like this out. So, when you're working on a tree, you can, kind of look ahead get a plan, see what you've got, and formulate some ideas, but really you kind of have to leave your options open. You can't assume that you know. You have to kind of work the tree from the bottom up, and you know, don't do anything till you absolutely have to. First, getting rid of all the stuff you know you don't need, like these hanging down branches. So the next thing that comes to my eye, I've established my first branch, my back branch. The immediate next branch up the trunk is a pretty large branch that somebody cut, and so it's short, but it's back-butted like crazy, which is too bad. But it's also kind of at the same level as my back branch, and it's kind of almost too thick to wire, or, well, I shouldn't say that, but anyhow, I'm just going to eliminate it, mainly because it's competing with your eye. This branch I want to keep, so it's competing with this branch right next to it. So you see how that frees up that section in there. So again, I kind of prefer to grab hold of stuff and break it off in a most natural kind of follow the natural grain, the growth of the tree, and it'll break away pretty easily in a way that, you know, could have been natural. Now, you'll notice in the back here where I removed that big mass of wood, there's another arm that comes off of that same section. And, you know, that's just when the tree was growing really fast, vigorous growth, it's super healthy, it's gigantic back there. You know, I'm not crazy about the size of that far up in the tree, but I need some branch back there. So I'm thinking that may still work. We may keep that just to kind of help us out in the back of this. And maybe we can hide some of that mass from the viewer. So already you can start to see a little more daylight in there where the branches leave the trunk, and you can start to at least see what kind of choices you might want to make, or what you've got to work with. Bonsai is really, a lot of it is taking what you've got and making it work, because you can only work with what the tree gives you. Very good. So what I think I'm going to do now, I know my apex is somewhere in here, obviously, but I'm going to just let that go for a minute. I'm going to start to wire these things into some sort of sense and start to define exactly the width and depth of my tree a little bit. And that'll help me pinpoint, or at least not make any mistakes, not rush to judgment, because you really don't know at this point. So I'm going to start at least wiring some of these lower branches and see what we get. So now, it's like how far out do I want to come with this apex? This branch, it just keeps coming this way, maybe a little too far. So I think I'm going to cut it back to one of these other forward-facing branches, but a little more scaled down, so I can bring this down and blend it in. It's not too heavy. And that also kind of moves this thing back. See how it's almost like a perfect C? That's kind of too much. So I'm going to back it up a little bit, get some more cuttings. And I'm going to gin the leftover stuff. Okay, you were asking me about a front branch. Thought I might have one, but it's just not working out. It's just too kind of in the center, down low, and coming right at you. And even if I try pulling it one way or the other, it's just not going to make any sense. So remove that. Now this tree was pretty dense before I started removing all these branches. So a lot of these upper branches don't have much going on in close to the trunk. They don't have much sprouts, and that's a little bit of a problem. I'm fairly confident this tree will back bud once we get a chance to recover it. But it's also something I want to be aware of as I arrange the branches. Like in here, you know, I've got this section with not much, no green. It's all out at the end. So I'm going to have to do some bends and hope for the best as far as back. And eventually, obviously, I'll cut it back, and that'll get it started. You know, you always, so I've already wired this apex trunk, so to speak, and now I'm adding wire to the secondary branches. Kind of want to keep your wire neat and follow and weave together the wires from the primary branches to the wires of the secondary branches. Otherwise you just get spaghetti and crossed wires, and it doesn't look good, and it doesn't help you keep track of the work that you're doing. Now I've got the basics kind of roughed out, wired down, sort of moving toward a position where they might actually end up. But everything's still in motion. So I'll start by kind of looking at my apex and seeing what I don't need on my apex, which is a lot of this growth. Just kind of, you know, peel back the fresh green stuff that maybe grew in the last 3 months or so. Not too much, but just enough to kind of slow things down up top. And hopefully when the tree gets its energy back, it'll start to back bud in here instead of just growing out the top. So we want to kind of keep things from getting too crazy on the top. Something like this I'm going to try and leave, or try not to beat it up too bad at least. Maybe, you know, when it does take off in the spring, you'll get the branch you need over on this side. All right, let's see if that's helping me see what needs to happen with this branch at all. Okay, I'm gonna have to call that pretty good for tonight's work. Obviously, you could detail the wiring. You should detail the wiring as much as you can stand. And then you probably shouldn't ever have to wire with that much detail again, because the tree will be kind of roughed out, heading in the direction you want it to be in, and after that it's just kind of pinch and clip and maintenance. Like I kind of need to bend these and bring these in